Okay, so this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to change the SCS Chrome bars to painted. So I still use the old import method instead of using the BT with Convert Pix wrapper. I just find it easier to use in general when you're doing a lot of different mods at once. So the first thing you want to do, make sure your base path is correct. I've already set mine up to my tutorial folder. And then if we go in and open the Scania front grille, make sure you're facing head on. Select the model and nip into materials and switch to truck paint. If you want to add a new UV map, just as an FYI, when you click the plus button you will automatically duplicate the UV map, so if you need to use the same UV map it will actually duplicate it for you, so you don't need to do any work. In this case we will need to change it. So if we go back then, diffuse you want to set to 1. Oops, go away. All on 1. Specular is something like 1.19418. We'll double check that later. We don't want it to be too shiny, so we'll set it higher at 250. Ambient should be 0. Environment factor usually 0.3 I think for painted items. Fresnel should be 0.2 and 0.9. Set up the UV map. The third option, I don't think it really matters in this case. I'm going to keep it the same as 1. But because it's not an actual truck and it's just a truck part, it won't actually use alternate UV mapping anyway, so 1 or 0 will do in this case, but just to make things simpler for me, I'll leave it on both on 1. The next thing we want to do is import a part from SCS that we know is painted. So I'm going to use the 4x2 painted side skirts. Do make sure you use the same vehicle because certain things like vertex paint might vary slightly between different trucks, so do make sure you use the same material, same truck rather, when testing the colouring. Now as you can see, this is currently way darker than this, and that will be obvious in game as well. So first step to do here, copy the texture. Now in this case I already know it's plain grey, which means it's a small square of a slightly off-white colour, but we'll use that here so that it's a similar colour. In fact, looking at it, it looks pretty much identical colour-wise, so I think we'll be fine doing that. If it was slightly darker or slightly brighter and it was fairly obvious, then just go into vertex paint, play around with this paint setting. 0.5 is default. I think SCS used 0.4, so I think 0.4 would match this, but I'm not entirely sure. But if you just play around with the brightness setting and then paint over it, it'll change colour on the fly, so you'll be able to see what's what. In this case I don't think it's necessary, so I'm just going to get rid of that. We don't need this anymore. In fact we do, no, we don't need this. We'll get rid of that. Now the next thing I want to do before we do anything else, I normally do this first but I have forgotten, and that is to rename the part. Now renaming the part is necessary if you plan to use the same export folder. Now I don't export to the SCS default folders, but if you want to do that you do need to change the name so you don't accidentally overwrite the model. So in my case what I would do is use IJs for IJs mod, so I know that it's unique to me. And then I'll also put in piece on, like my painted version, just in case I do other versions like stainless steel or whatever, solid black, carbon, whatever. I put a little letter in there just so I know what it is specifically, in this case paint. So now we've done that, we want to go back to the texture. Now you can leave the texture here if you want to, and it will link to the SCS texture. But that does risk them changing something in the future, which would mean you have to re-import and fix everything. So sometimes it is wiser to use your own texture, so I'm going to do that in this one. If we go over here, got the work folder set up, I'll go into the main base folder. Find plain grey. Then go into my tutorial project folder, and I'm just going to copy them into the same place I'm going to export my files to. And you'll notice here that I use IJs in the main update folder instead of just update, and that's again just to further make sure that my mods are compatible with other people's mods, so it's completely unique. So we want to open this up. Because it's pixed, it's all in plain text, so I just need to change this here. So vehicle truck, IJs upgrade or update, F grill, Scania 16, and the rest is the same. Get rid of that, save that, and then close the tab. Go back to Blender, and now we can change this as well. So if I go, yeah, I'm going to have to start off right. So to the project, to the tutorial, go through all the folders, and click on plain grey. Now I've obviously made an error somewhere. Double check then. Vehicle, truck, oh yeah. Would help if I spelled it right, wouldn't it? And you can see it's fixed itself, there we go. Get rid of that error. So yeah, so now you're using your own custom texture file, which is linked in the mod. That's all you need to do. You can change this if you want to, but you don't really need to. Just for the sake of it, I'm just going to switch it to IJS Paint, just because I can. And that's it. You can now export the model. You will want to UV map it first, wouldn't we? That would be a good idea. So Control 1, 5, so that it's nice and flat. You always want it flat when you're doing UV mapping. If we zoom in, now there's two ways you can do this. If you intentionally want it to be so you have to use the new paint system and use it as an accessory paint, then you can map it however you want here. If you'd rather have it so it's optional on the template, then the best thing to do is open up a template. I'm going to use the 8X because it's the busiest template of the three. But as you can see, we still have plenty of white space. So if we go into edit mode, make sure it's highlighted, press U, and then projects from view, and then we can just move it anywhere we need it to be, shrink it down, and you could overlap all the other ones here if you wanted to, or make it smaller, stick it right down in the corner, whatever's preferable to you. And there you have a UV mapped model. So we just want to save the model, set up your export folder appropriately. I know mine's in the same folder as my texture there. And then that's it, export. Now in my case I do not use the pack mod. I want to test my mods in open folder structure, so I just use the convert to SCS project. Make sure the folder's clear. Get rid of Blender. As you can see, my model exported as well there now. So if we go back to work folder, conversion tools, just drop these. Oh, I don't want to do that yet, do I? Drop that into my tutorial folder. Then go back to the accessory. Now the accessory here, this is just a copy of the SCS dev file for the grill. So we're going to want to change that. I'm going to call it IJs P1 instead for paint 1. Open the file. IJs P1. We'll keep the same name. I'm going to add paint. If you're wondering what the @ symbols are for, that tells the game that this word is in the get lock, which means it will automatically translate into whatever language the user's using. I know that the word paint is correct, so I'll do that in here. For the price, I usually add on something like just $5, or in this case euros, just so it makes sure it comes in underneath the SCS part, make it slightly more expensive. I might change the unlock, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I mean, I'm at something like level 52 now, so irrelevant to me. The icon, I always suggest making your own icon if it's going to be a public mod. If it's a private mod, it doesn't really matter, just leave it. And then of course the exterior model, we want that to link to where we've set it up. So if we just go back into vehicle, truck, come on. So vehicle, truck, IJ's upgrade, or update even. I spelt that wrong, it was supposed to be upgrade, but we'll go with update, it's fine. Doesn't make much difference. F grill, Scania 2016. Make sure you change the name, and that's it. The mod should now be fully functional, and we can go try it in the game.